That movie is a shit show. What you think you see, what you think you hear, that's what it's about. It's all theater of the mind. No, it's garbage. It's garbage. Mood and atmosphere. Now that I really like. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I want to see.
There we go. I'm here. I'm hearing the show in my. Is it on your end? Maybe. There we go. That's better. I was wondering where that was coming from. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome. I could hear like double. And I was thinking to myself, where did that? But no, I think we're good now. I think we're good.
My fault.
That's all right. No worries. I don't know if they could hear it, but I could hear it. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to this show. The show it doesn't even really have a name. It's just me live again. It is, what is it? It's 6:46 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on this Tuesday, April the 26th, 2022. I keep thinking it's one day ahead because Tony and I did the Two Dude Show on Sunday, and we normally do it on Monday. Yeah. So I'm all over the place. I keep thinking it's Wednesday, and it's actually Tuesday. Tomorrow, I have no doubt I'll think it's Thursday. Anyway, for half a second, I was like, oh, Darren, you're in the chat. What's going on there? How's... Wait, so what?
Low.
There's a horror film right there. He's in. Ooh, what's going on? I don't know. Welcome. Thank you very much for doing this. This is a lot of fun. I hope this will be a lot of fun. I should say.
It's fine. I'm looking forward to it. It's a movie that I've said before. On some days, I find this movie better than Halloween, depending on which side of the bed I get out of. I'm a huge fan of this film, so it's good to talk about it.
Yeah, for sure. And you know what? When I suggested it as the topic, it's funny because The Fog is one of those movies that I don't think actually gets enough love. Now, I mean, if you really don't like the movie, I mean, I can't, you can't pray, you son of a bitch, you can't, okay, you don't like the movie. But whenever you hear, at least what I've noticed, whenever you hear people talk about John Carpenter, the top 5 John Carpenter movies, or, top 10 John Carpenter movies, or, well, top 10, it might be in there. But usually when you do a top 5 of John Carpenter films, I have noticed that very rarely does The Fog actually make the list. You'll get Halloween, you'll get Escape from New York, you'll get The Thing, you'll get maybe Prince of Darkness, and then you might get some odd one in there, so maybe like a Ghost of Mars or a They Live, or that's not really an oddball, but you never get The Fog. You never ever get The Fog, and I think it's so unfortunate. I think it's one of his best movies.
I think so as well. It's unfortunate, I think, because it was probably sandwiched in between a bunch of movies that he was involved with at the time, like Halloween 2 and Escape from New York and The Thing. He made like 3. I mean, I know he didn't direct Halloween 2, but he was heavily involved in it.
Yeah.
But he did make about 3 or 4 films in the short space of around about 2 years.
He did.
So it, unfortunately, and because it wasn't a huge success at the box office, I mean, it took 20 million in 1980 globally, which is good considering it was a $1 million budget. But, when you compare it to Halloween, which took, what was it, 70, 80 million or something like that when it came out.
75 or something ridiculous like that. Yeah.
It's not the hit that, it's kind of that awkward second, even though it's not his second film, but it's like that awkward second album, isn't it?
Right.
After that huge success that he had.
Yeah. You're right. And it never, I find that it's never usually on the list, and it's very rarely in the discussion. I think the soundtrack to The Fog is, yes, it's not as iconic as Halloween. It's not as memorable as all the Halloween tracks. But the Fog soundtrack, I think, is really good. I actually have the soundtrack here. I was prepared on CD. I purchased this on CD probably about. I'm going to say
is that the double one.
This is no, it's not the double one. But what do we got here? I probably got this in the early 2000s, maybe. But it comes.
It's the one with. Sorry, no, it's not a double one. It's the one with the. Does it have the radio adverts on there and everything at the end?
Let me see.
I think there's maybe like an interview with Jamie Lee Curtis on there.
Radio interview with Jamie Lee Curtis about the Fog. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's that one. And I adore this soundtrack. When you listen to the soundtrack on its own as well, away from the movie, it's eerie. It's classic Carpenter. You can definitely hear the Halloween isms in it, and maybe that's why I'm drawn to it. But it also has its own distinct identity, and the theme too. You know. Like, it's so good.
It's
so
fantastic.
good.
And it was actually chucked together because he had a cut of the film. He screened it, and it just got absolutely
shit.
Even he stood up and said, "This is shit. This isn't working." And so he went away, and because originally the Fog didn't have any of the fishermen in it at all. There was nothing in the Fog whatsoever. People literally just disappeared into it. So he went away and shot all this new stuff with these kind of, these lepers and everything, these zombified lepers, and also redid the soundtrack. And this was all done in a short period of time to meet his release date. And it's I'd be interested to know what the original Fog soundtrack was like.
Interesting.
I came up with it.
I didn't know he redid the soundtrack as well.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was all a bit of a rush job.
Interesting. I wonder if it was maybe a combination of both, where he redid some elements of it, but he kept others. I didn't know that. I knew that he had gone back to shoot a lot of sort of the gore, because they were worried, in 1980, of course, they were up against, the golden age of slashers was really kicking into high gear, and low budget horror movies were being released, a la Friday the 13th and so forth, that were really gory, bloody, they had to go back and sort of, create those creatures in the Fog. Right. And I think that whole sequence on the boat, if I'm not mistaken, with like the slicing and the dicing that happens on the boat, I think that was also
all
additional.
Kind of gore, the gore scenes on there were all kind of added in later, and the stuff on top of the lighthouse with Adrian Barbeau with the worm face, and that was all kind of added in later. And it was. I'd love to see the version that he originally had.
I think I read somewhere that like a third or 2/3 or something was new footage. It makes me wonder.
It was a lot.
What was this movie before? Like, listen, I like theater of the mind, okay? But I mean, as soon as I hear like you couldn't see anything, it was just people disappeared in the fog, my first instinct is, ooh, I like that, But if 2/3 of the whole movie was stuff that was, and don't quote me on that, folks, but it was something like that. It does make me wonder if even I would have watched it and been like, okay, I think we need we need a little something here. This is a little too obscure, perhaps, or a little too,
If you read the Carpenter on set book, it's really interesting because
is that the Gottlieb one?
The Kim Gottlieb Walker, yeah.
Yeah, I gotta get that.
It's fantastic, because I was actually going to send you some of the pictures to put up, because there's like behind the scenes photographs, and you got people like Kurt Russell and his wife Susan Hubley at the time all hanging out on the set.
Amazing.
And there's a piece in there about the fact that obviously he was married to Deborah Hill before he made this film, and then they split up, and he married Adrian Barbeau.
Yes.
And apparently Deborah Hill was a real trooper, because she just kind of acted so professionally with it all, because obviously it was awkward. It must have been so awkward. I know that group are all kind of quite incestuous anyway, aren't they?
That's right. That's right.
But I just wonder whether those sort of distractions kind of contributed him to his first version of the movie not being as he wanted it, or he wasn't firing on all cylinders, basically.
Right.
But he turned it around.
He did. He did.
Yeah.
I thought it was great. I think I've told you this. I might have even told this on my chat, like I actually on a stream before. I think I have, but Gottlieb there. I always forget her name.
Kim Gottlieb Walker.
Kim Gottlieb Walker. Yeah. When I was at the 40th anniversary convention, I had walked up to her table because she had a table there. She had all these books that were there. The book that you're talking about, and she was selling it, and I had already purchased. Let's just say I went a little overboard at the 40th anniversary. T-shirts and hoodies and books and all sorts of stuff. There's a lot of things to buy there, and so I was like, all right, that's it. I'm going to purchase this thing. I've got to do it, and I unfortunately she had sold out, and I was like, so she had a few that were there, but they were display only. And I was like, that's too bad. And she's like, well, you could message me and blah, blah, blah. So I start flipping through the book, and listen, she's the photographer. She's there. She's the professional. She would know better than I would. I just found this strange. And Kim, if you're watching, she's not watching, but if she ever does, I hope I did not insult you. That was not my intention to insult you. It was not my intention to do that whatsoever. I just was surprised, and it almost didn't, I was so surprised it didn't make any sense to me. So of course I'm talking about the picture of Nick Castle dressed as Michael Myers, looking over the railing of the stairs with the knife in the hand. And actually, I think, that's right. He's got the knife in his hand, and he's there, and he's looking. Very famous shot. One of the most famous shots of Michael Myers in history. Now, that particular shot on that particular angle obviously does not appear in the movie. That is clearly a BTS photo only. But I mean, it's iconic. We all know it. We love it. It's iconic. When I saw the photo in the book, you can see what looked like Nick Castle's eyes. You can actually see his eyeballs, but it looks strange. It almost looked like it's digitally put in. It doesn't look real to me. And then of course, I'm starting to think about, they must have been put in, because that doesn't make any sense, because I've never seen the photo like that before, ever. This is the first time I'm ever seeing this photo that's like this. So I'm talking to Kim about this. The woman that took the goddamn photo, I'm basically telling her she's wrong, not in so many words, but I'm just so perplexed. And she's, there you go. No, that's the way it was. She was very kind, very professional. That's the way. And I'm like, are you sure? I'm like, that doesn't, because in my mind, I'm thinking, but the exposure, how can everything else be so dark? But you get the exposure doesn't make, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Of course, I didn't know what was going on. Anyway.
Accusing her of doctoring her own photographs.
It probably felt like that. So Kim, my apologies. I hope she probably walked away from that event going, she probably went home. If she's married, her husband was probably like, so how did it go? Oh, it was great, except for this little fucking Canadian weasel that came to my table and was trying to tell me about the goddamn thing. That's probably what ended up happening. But anyway.
Well, shout out to Kim Gottlieb Walker anyway. And you should buy her book, because it has got the most amazing photographs in there. I mean, the behind the scenes stuff on Halloween, the photographs from that, you got Dennis Quaid hanging out there on the set with them all. And, because he was going out with, what's her name?
PJ Souls.
PJ Souls at the time. Yeah. It's just a fascinating book, and unfortunately my wife thought she'd struck gold at Christmas and bought me it, not realizing I'd had it for 3 years in the cabinet beside me. But I felt bad because she'd really looked into it to sort of buy it. But I wanted to say, just before we forget, a shout out to Frank, who can't be with us tonight again. Frank Riker's unfortunately working again tonight. He's a trooper with that job, and so but the three of us are going to get together soon, aren't we? And we are.
Do something. But
we definitely will. He's probably in the chat, I think.
He might be in the chat.
Yeah,
or he's peeling a deer off somebody's headlights. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, so but back to the fog for a moment. You know, it's one of those things where I love the mood of the film and the atmosphere, of course, and I do understand that it does have a even though it's shot anamorphic, it does have maybe a low budget feel to it, and maybe that's part and part because of the effects or it's there's a charm to it though. There's a real charm to that film.
Yeah, and it was shot where the birds were shot in
Yes.
Bodega Bay. It's again a lot, you know, with Carpenter. A lot of the time he uses the same actors, and even though he's using Hal Holbrook in this, you could just as easily see Donald Pleasance playing that role.
For sure.
But Hal Holbrook does a fantastic job anyway. But when you look at the character names in the film, so you've got Tom Atkins is playing a character called Nick Castle.
Yes, that's right.
The fisherman on the seagrass is a guy called Dick Baxter. John Carpenter plays a character called Bennett Tramer.
That's right.
And Charles Cyphers, who's he plays this sort of leching weatherman in this film.
See, I often think that is Lee Brackett retired.
It is a little bit like that.
He's a little slimy. He's a little slimy. He's got that, excuse me, line. Scared another one away.
But his character's called Dan O'Bannon, who was Carpenter's college buddy who made Darkstar with him.
Wasn't he in this movie too? Or did he play one of the pirates?
No. Oh, he may have done a cameo. I don't recall.
I thought he did, but maybe I'm wrong. I could very well be wrong. I thought no, maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong.
It was Rob Bottin that was Blake.
Oh, okay. Then maybe that's who I'm thinking of. But yeah, you know, he's obviously recycling a lot of Halloween character names, and this is a stash-less Tom Atkins, so he's got no mustache in this. And
it's kind of odd like that, doesn't
he? He does look a little strange. He does look a little strange.
He's lost his power a little bit.
Yeah. But this is a movie that obviously never spawned a sequel. It wasn't successful enough, I think, to do that. There was one remake in 2005. I remember watching the remake and not liking the remake, but there was something about it I liked. But I can't remember what that was because I've only seen the movie once and it was back in 2005. So I don't know what it was, but I do remember walking away thinking to myself, well, I didn't like the movie. It wasn't as good as the original, but I like that they did that. It was that kind of thing. And I can't remember what the heck that is now. But this is a film that the original 1980, my sister Jill too always says that she actually went to see this in the theater when it came out, and she would have been because she's 15 years older than me. So she in 1980 she would have been 64. She was born in 64, so 16. Yeah, so prime age, and she said she went with her friend, and she always tells me the story. About I forget what it was in the fog, but she says what she remembers about the fog is she had her Smarties in her hand. Now, Smarties for my American friends are not the little sweet candies that you have there. Smarties, I think they're the same in the UK, right? They're the chocolate covered.
Yeah, they're like M&Ms, I guess.
Right.
Chocolate M&Ms, yeah.
That's right. Yeah. So in Canada, we have them as well, but in the States, Smarties are the little sugary, what we call rockets. But anyway, so Smarties, the Canadian UK candy, she had a box of those in her hands. And something happened, some big thing, and she just freaked out, and the whole box of Smarties literally went up in the air and crashed all over the floor. And I, you know, I would often ask her, what part is that? Because I'm like, I gotta know what part is the smarty part. Because every time I watch the movie, I think of my sister. Every time I watch the movie, I think of my sister telling me that story, and she can't remember. But I think it
has to be
on the boat,
body coming out of the cupboard, doesn't it? On the boat. Yeah,
it's gotta be that.
Yeah,
it's gotta be.
Or it could be, and God knows why he does this. And when Frank and I spoke about this on our podcast, we can't get a head around. You know, there's jump scares in films and things. I think there's even one in X when I watched it the other day, which was just like a pointless jump scare of somebody creeping up behind somebody when everybody's shit scared anyway, you know. And there's a jump scare in The Fog where Hal Holbrook sat in the dark in the corner of the church.
Yes, and
Janet Leigh, and he just kind of launches up and touches her shoulder, but it's almost like he's being like
cheeky about it.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just weird the way that he does it. He's been like elevated out of that space.
It does,
where she is behind her, and and that's a jump scare, but it's one of those kind of, why is that a jump scare? You know, it
also makes you wonder what the hell was his character doing in there. I mean, he's just he's in the darkness. I think that's what it was, because clearly he saw them come in. He's sitting right there. He's not coming out of another room. He's sitting in some chair that has propelled him forward out of the darkness, like, you know, and he's hello, you know, it's just there's something weird about it. Yeah.
It's a classic Carpenter, you know, creeping up behind somebody. Brackett does it on Loomis in Halloween.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Like Loomis has scared a kid and the kid's gone off, but we know that's happening. And then Brackett just doesn't say anything. He comes out of nowhere and puts his hand on his shoulder.
That's right. That's right.
Loomis. Yeah.
That's right. Yep. Doesn't say anything, just sort of, you know, walks up and then Loomis, oh, geez. Yeah. Yeah, sorry. Nothing up here in Canada. He's so slimy in that movie. I don't know what it is.
40-year-old Brackett, eh?
Oh, I can't believe I'm older than Brackett than he is in the original. He's 39. He's 39.
He's 39 in Halloween.
He's 39 in Halloween. I don't know if people know that. Folks in the chat room, did you know that Charles Cyphers is actually 39 years old in the original Halloween? He looks like he's in his 50s.
Mid-50s or something,
yeah,
doesn't he? Yeah,
he does. He looks like he's in his mid-50s. He's 39. Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing.
He's 24. No.
You think about it, because he's 83, 84 now, so it makes sense. You know, the fact that he was in the latest film.
Yeah.
And he's actually he's coming to the UK in a couple of weeks, along with Nancy Keys and somebody will have to remind me, but there's 3 Halloween stars that are coming to the UK for a convention in a few weeks' time, and Brackett's one, and Charles Cyphers is one of them. And it makes me laugh because they put these kind of cheesy pictures of them on these photos that are taken about 35 years ago.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. When they're happy and there were no conventions.
Yeah. And I always remember when you met him that time, and he didn't know what the internet was or something, did he?
Well, he had, again, it was at the 40th convention, and I was making my way around and talking to people, but it was an interesting experience because I was getting stopped literally every 5 seconds because people were, you know, recognizing me, which is something that was hilarious. So it was a combination of wanting to go over and meet people I've never met before and having to, you know, meet people who want to meet me, which is really, you know, it was a lot of fun. So I think I have a live stream on my channel somewhere of the event, and you can actually hear me live stopping and starting every few seconds because I'm actually, you know, talking to somebody. So it was a lot of fun. Shout out to everybody who came up to me. Of course, it was like 4 years ago now, but anyway. So so I had, there was a few select people that I definitely wanted to meet. And one of them was Dean Cundy, because out of everybody that was there, Dean Cundy is not just a Halloween legend, he's a film legend. And no disrespect to anybody else that was there, but everybody else really is more so known for Halloween. Not that there's anything wrong with that. That's kudos. That's amazing. But Dean Cundy, you know, Jurassic Park, Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, you know, he's a legend in his field. And so I was like, I gotta meet him. And beside him was Charles Cyphers. and he was there with his handler and whatnot. And I guess maybe a panel was happening or something had happened, and the area where I was had dispersed a bit, and there was really nobody there. And I thought, well, here's a great opportunity to walk up to Chuck. I didn't call him that, and meet him. And he's there, and he had a big beard, and all this, and he looks there, and he's sitting there, and he looks. I mean, I say this with all due respect. He looked miserable. And I walked up to him, and I said, "Hello, Mr. Cyphers. My name's Dave McRae. Blah blah blah. And we're exchanging pleasantries, and then I asked him, because I did with a few people, Dean Cundy included, if he wouldn't mind being on camera to answer a few questions, because there was a couple of questions I wanted to ask him that were not the standard. So what was it like being in? No. I mean, I had some real good meaty ones, and then he's like, he's there, he's behind the counter, and he's there, and he's like. What's this for? And I said, well, it's for my it's for my YouTube channel. He's like, a YouTube channel? It's for the. He's like, is that the internet? And I said, yes, it's for the internet. And he goes, well, where's this going to be? And I said, well, it's going to be on the internet. No, I think when I introduced myself, I said I was from Toronto. And that's what, I said I was from Toronto. And he was, so he had said, so it's going to be on your channel on the internet? I said, yeah, that's right. He goes, in Toronto? And I said, no, I said, it's going to be, and his handler, bless her, she's beside him, and she's like, no, Charles, it's the internet. It's everywhere. It's going to be, he's like, everywhere? And he's like, yeah, it's going to be everywhere. And it's just was so funny. And I'm standing there and I'm thinking, I'm getting nowhere. And so he goes, no, I don't want to do that. I'm retired. Yeah, he's retired until Halloween Kills money comes in, is what ends up happening, right? And because that's what he said. He goes, I'm retired. I don't want to. So I said, that's okay. So we just talked for a couple of minutes, and then I left. But yeah, the internet in Toronto. Yeah, that's right. I should have said that. I should have said, yes, just in Toronto. Just that's it. Yeah.
Is there anyone else you pissed off at this convention, Dave? Because you told Kim Gottlieb Walker that her photographs were doctored, then you turned around to Charles Cyphers and
Dean Cundy liked me. I liked it. And I was able to confirm with Dean Cundy, because I asked him point blank. I said that shot at the beginning of the movie when it's on a crane and you're coming back, and that's like a cinematic tableau, right? It's like a still image. And he's like, yes, it is. And I said, okay, because there's a lot of people that are like, why are you standing there? And he's like, well, it meant this and this and this and this. And if the mother didn't put her hands in the pocket, I don't think people would be saying that. But anyway, yeah. So that was Charles Cyphers. That was my Charles Cyphers. He was very nice, like in terms of, he wasn't rude to me or anything, but he was very skeptical. He was like, who is this kid, this 40-year-old kid who wants to, he wants to put something like, because I probably looked like I was 18. I had my little hat on and my backpack, and I'm there with my little, gimbal, and I'm like, excuse me, Mr. Cyphers, so God, yeah, it was funny. No, the internet in Toronto? No, Charles, it's everywhere. It's not just in Toronto, it's everywhere. He looked like I don't get it.
It could have been worse. You could have gone up to him and you could have gone, well, hi, Dave.
Oh, God. That would have been awful. Hi, Dave. How are you? If he was younger, and I probably would have, and he was maybe okay with being on camera, I totally would have asked him to say something like that. Like, excuse me, Laurie. I got, what's his face? Leo Rossi, the guy that played Bud.
Bud, yeah.
Yeah, I did get him to recite. Of course, I'm probably not the only one that's ever done that, but I did get him to recite the Amazing Grace. But he wouldn't say, "Come sit on my face." He stopped. I think he's a purized man now. He's I don't know if he's a religious man now or what, but he said, "Amazing Grace, come sit on my," and then he just stopped, and I guess people have to fill it in.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right,
yeah. Is he solely selling himself at these conventions? Because I've never been to a convention that he's been at. In fact, I've only probably been to one convention a long time ago. But is he selling himself on his Halloween movie, or because I know he was in The Accused as well, wasn't he? He had a not too pleasant role in The Accused.
Who's this again?
Leo Rossi, the Jodie Foster film.
Yeah, I don't. Well, sorry,
I was going to say, given that you're saying that he kind of is probably trying to erase some of the things that he said and done in the past, or
I don't know. This was, I mean, the 40th anniversary Halloween convention.
Yeah,
so I figured if there was ever a place where you'd get him to do that, it would be at the 40th anniversary Halloween convention. He wasn't there for any other reason.
Okay.
But yeah, no, he did. But that is actually on my channel, so that you can see him sort of stop before he actually says the word face.
Yeah, and it seems like, talking of Halloween, I know we're supposed to be talking about The Fog, but we've kind of drifted here. But it's all kind of Carpenter universe.
It
anyway,
is. It is. It's Chuck.
We hear that it sounds like the 45th convention's going ahead.
Yes, the 45th convention. That's what I heard. I guess it was from Sean Clark and his interview with Kyle Curtis Flatt a few days ago. He had said something about how it is in the works and it's locked and loaded, and they are ready to move forward with it. So it looks like there will be, according to Sean Clark, there will be a 45th anniversary Halloween convention. So that'll be next year, I guess, 2023. I assume, I don't know if he said this. I'll have to reach out to Sean and see if he wants to come on and talk about it. I assume it would be happening there in Pasadena. I mean, it makes the most sense. That's where everything is. That's where all the locations are and all that kind of stuff. So, I guess it probably happened in October, probably something like that.
That would be fantastic. Yeah.
So
I'm certainly going to try and make my way over for that.
Yeah.
Probably the last opportunity, in all seriousness, won't it?
It sounds a little morbid to say, but when you look at the likes of Charles Cyphers, when you look at the likes of Dick Warlock, who had retired for a few years there, and now he's back doing some conventions, very sort of light, but he's doing a few of them. But even Nick Castle, I mean, he's 74 now. We hope everybody is around for the 50th. But the older you get, I mean, who knows, right? You never know. I mean, that's still 8 years away. 6 years away, I guess. So who knows what can happen in that time? And there's a lot of older actors that may not be around. So
who knows though? By the time it comes to H50, we may have another half a dozen Halloween films out by then.
We probably will. We probably will. I would like, though, back to The Fog for a moment, then we'll jump over to the Q&A in a sec, but I would like to see, I don't know, do you think, I guess if they were to approach The Fog again, they would probably likely do a remake. I don't know if a sequel.
I'm down for Atkins in anything. So
yeah, it's true. I guess I'm just trying to think of who would own the rights to The Fog right now? Who's got them?
It would be, I think it is MGM, if I remember right.
MGM.
I'm pretty sure it's MGM who has the rights to The Fog right now. I think they may be bought because they also released Escape from New York, which was also Avco Embassy. So I think they bought up Avco Embassy's catalog at some stage.
Okay. Blumhouse should look into acquiring those rights, because The Fog, a remake of The Fog, I know there was one in 2005, but it's ripe for another attempt. And in 2005, Blumhouse wasn't a thing. Jason Blum, I still think, was with Paramount at that time, if I'm not mistaken, or he wasn't Blumhouse, certainly. I don't even think that existed. And I don't think, anyway. But anyway, so that was 2005, so that's a long time ago.
Yeah.
It is right up Blumhouse's alley. It's already got a built-in sort of, fan base. It's got awareness. It's a movie you could make for $5 million, $10 million, like somewhere in there probably. And it would probably do fairly well, especially if you got Carpenter and his Daniel Davies and Cody Carpenter to do the music. Fuck. I mean, Jesus, I might even pitch it to Carpenter, be like, come back and direct this. Come back. He's like, why the fuck would I do The Fog again? Just because this is no, he doesn't care. He doesn't want it. I don't think he wants to direct.
I always say this, but I still want him to come back and do and bookend his career with something.
I know.
Be it, I don't know, a sequel to The Fog or a sequel to The Thing or whatever. I don't care. I'd love to see him do one last film.
Can you imagine Atkins comes back to do a sequel to The Fog with Carpenter directing? Those old guys on set. Can you imagine?
Well, the thing is, if they do a sequel to The Fog with Carpenter directing, they wouldn't need a goddamn smoke machine. They can just have him chuffing away on fags at the side of the camera, can't they?
I think he's. I don't think he smokes anymore.
Cigarettes, that is, guys. That word is UK slang for a cigarette.
That's
Sorry.
right. That's right.
I just realized.
That's all right. It happens. But I don't think he smokes anymore. I don't think Carpenter.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think he's quit for a while, actually, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure he doesn't smoke anymore. But yeah, a Fog remake or a Fog sequel, I think I would be down for it. I think I would like to see. I don't know. What do you do with a sequel, right? I think it makes probably the most sense to just remake the story and to modernize it. But like most low budget horror movies, location. And if you just make it about a small town that has a history, that has this story attached to it, and you could make The Fog as scary as The Mist. You could do that kind of thing, but with The Fog. You bring it into the 21st century. Well, I guess they did that with the 05 one, but you know what I mean. You really sort of, but don't lose the DNA. I mean, don't CGI the whole thing, and still make it about this small town and this the pirates and this fog that was rolling in, and what's going on. There's something in the fog, and you could. I think you could do it really well. I think you could.
There was talk of it being, and this is a long time ago, there was talk of it being a miniseries a long time ago. And I would like that. I think I would like to see a Fog miniseries that not only covers the events of that night in Antonio Bay, but the events 100 years prior as well. And how the locals conspired to sink this, this wealthy sailor's ship that had leprosy because he was going to build a leper colony in the bay and all this sort of thing. I'd love to see all that. Yeah. And just see how all those guys came to be.
Maybe that's what you do. Maybe that's sort of you go back and it's a reboot of The Fog, but instead of rebooting the modern story, you start with the 100 years prior. And kind of see where you go from there. Because I think there is a lot of potential with this property. It's just unfortunate it's not a property for whatever reason. And the only thing I can think of is that it's I was gonna say it's dated, but listen, so is Halloween. Sorry, folks, it's a little dated. But I think it's that the fog is just maybe it's the effects, maybe it's the the creatures and the hands coming through the doors, and maybe it just looks very sort of rudimentary and primitive now, and maybe that's why people are kind of like, oh, that's not scary, whereas Michael, because of the subtlety of it, because of the way that they did, or the way that he did that first Halloween, it's almost timeless. It's a very it is more about that theater of the mind, whereas The Fog isn't. But it's a terrific, it's a great little film. The Fog, it is. Top five for me. With
Sean Clark's in the chat as well. So,
great!
Just did the he just did the one of his videos the other day on some of the props.
He did.
Yeah,
Hey, Sean, what's going on, buddy? Great to have Sean here as always. The Fog 2, 6 More Must Die. Yeah, maybe 6 More Must Die. And we'll get Atkins in there as well. He'll come back.
You know what? With the Fog, though, I think the one character that if we were to remake it, I wouldn't put I love Jamie Lee Curtis, don't get me wrong, but I think her character's so pointless in the film.
Well,
she's a banner name for the film. That was it, because she was off the back of Halloween and probably,
yes.
Maybe, was it Prom Night by then? I can't remember.
Something like that, yeah.
Terror Train or something.
Yeah, God, Terror Train. Can't stand that movie.
I just think that she's in this film for no reason other than A, because she's a name, and B, as a kind of...
Yeah, no,
some sort of final girl, but the movie's Adrienne Barbeau's film.
It's Adrienne Barbeau's film. Jamie Lee Curtis, at that time, obviously John Carpenter was stunned and shocked that she wasn't being hired left, right, and center after the success of Halloween. That was one of the reasons why he just couldn't. He's like, what the hell is wrong with everybody? So he decided to cast her again in his own movie, which ended up being The Fog. But you're right. I think that the role that Curtis has in The Fog really is nothing. I mean, it does sort of, in retrospect, it is Adrienne Barbeau's film, 100%. So for Jamie Lee Curtis to, if they ever did the Fog too, and they actually brought back people, you would have to at least extend the invitation to Curtis. I don't think she'd want to have anything to do with it. Although you never know. I mean, you never know. I mean, maybe if Blumhouse got a hold of it, she was given an executive producer, and David Gordon Green was directing it. Maybe, I don't know. You never know. But I could see Curtis kind of going, I don't think so. I think no. But and who is and is she still prostituting? I mean, that is really what what we.
I think she was a hitchhiker, wasn't she? More than.
Well, that's true. She wasn't really.
Although she does jump into the sack with Nick Castle pretty quick.
I think that's why I always thought as a kid, when I was watching that movie as a kid in the 80s, I always used to think she was some sort of prostitute, because I'm thinking to myself, boy, she's, I don't even think they knew each other's names either, right? It was just sort of.
It's afterwards. He says, does he ask her a name afterwards or something? He does.
He does. I think he's like, I don't even know your name.
Beforehand.
That's right. Jeez. But I think no. I mean, if you were to do a sequel, like actually get serious and do a sequel, I don't know if Adrienne Barbeau would have any interest in returning, but certainly that's who it would focus. I actually think if you were to remake the movie, you have an opportunity to really focus in on the Stevie Wayne character, and maybe you hire somebody like. Well, she might be a little too young at this point, but I was just thinking like somebody up and coming like a Jenna Ortega or somebody like that who can take on the role of like Stevie Wayne. Jenna Ortega, she's still quite young. I think she's only like 19 or something like that, or 20 or something. So she might be a little young for the character, unless you were to, write the narrative in a way that makes sense for her to be that young. But Stevie Wayne was a woman that looked like she was well into her 30s at that point. So
she was gorgeous in this film.
Oh, stunning. Stunning. She's still stunning. My God, she's still stunning. But yeah, and so definitely a remake, if you were to do it, focus on that character, the Stevie Wayne character, about this woman who has this, and I love the idea that there's a woman who has, the late night DJ job at the local radio, right? And she's broadcasting from the bloody lighthouse. I think that's fantastic. I think it's so small town, coastal Maine, Washington, San Jose or wherever they shot. I think was it close to San Jose? Somewhere around there, I think. Anyways.
Yeah.
Coastal, right? Coastal. And it's such a perfect look. But I would, Jesus, I might set this in like Maine or something, really capitalize on the East Coast, the Northeast coast and
do it in the snow.
Or maybe have a little bit of snow. Do it in the snow. Yes, blood all over the snow, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
The only thing is that setting it today, and this is one of the this is where I get a bit grumpy, because if we set it today, it'd be an internet radio station. Everybody would be listening to it on their phones. And, that's one thing that I loved about the original, was there's none of that kind of technology that gets in the way. It's like watching X recently, and, people are divided on X.
Yeah.
I loved it because they set it at a time where it's, mobile technology, or any technology for that matter, isn't going to get in the way of this film. There's not going to be somebody tweeting every 5 minutes, or checking their social pages or anything. And I always enjoy the fact that when filmmakers set their films, and you can call them period films if you like, if they're set in the 70s and 80s, I really enjoy that nostalgia of going back to them when we didn't have these kind of simpler times, if you like. We didn't have these distractions.
I do as well. And, going back to my Jenna Ortega idea, and again, it doesn't have to be her, but to your point, Darren, if you were to set it in, let's say, the 80s, you can utilize the time period. So there's no cell phones, no internet, but obviously, a studio would probably want to utilize the main cast as a younger sort of crowd to appeal to the younger demographic of horror movies. So Jenna Ortega might maybe she is Stevie Wayne. Maybe it's like a local college station, or something like that, or like a community unit, like a very community university type thing, and you can write it however you want it. And the headquarters is at this lighthouse on this, cliff next to the ocean, and that could be part of the. No way, are you serious? That's where you get the broadcast from? I was like, that's where I'm broadcasting from, or whatever, and it just becomes part of sort of the thing. And I agree with you. I think if you were to set it today, it would be a podcast, right? It wouldn't be a local radio station. It would be a podcast. And look, if that's the way it would have to be, because the studios were like, hey, look, podcasts are really hot right now. This is what we want to do. You have to make it work, I guess. But I agree with you. There's a charm and an isolation when you remove the internet, you remove the cell phones, you remove the immediate access of communication and being able to tap in, and and there's a vulnerability there that I think that could be a great opportunity for a remake of The Fog. And if you cast, again, it doesn't have to be Jenna Ortega, but if you were to cast these up and coming, known sort of, hot up and coming young actors, there might be appeal there. There might be appeal there. So
I think I'd definitely be up for it, but only if it's done right this time.
Yes.
I don't want to say too much about the last remake, but it was complete misfire.
Well, they hired.
Sorry,
I was just going to say they hired what's his face because of his popularity on Supernatural, right? So, what's his name? Padalecki. I thought he was.
No, it's Tom Welling.
Oh, it's Tom Wellington. Oh, okay.
Tom Welling. Yeah.
From Tom Welling. Oh, from Smallville. Okay, I'm thinking of the wrong person. Okay. Well, still. Yeah. Okay. That's right. All right. Well, let's go over to the chat room and see what the chat room is saying. I know a super chat did come in, so let me just quickly go back and get that super chat. I think it was from Andrew Stevens. Now is the time, if you want your question guaranteed an answer, to send in a super chat. I did see somebody in the chat earlier was like, what the hell is going on? Where's Tony? And I don't know who said that now, but wrong show, folks. Wrong show. Tony is fine. I promise that he's okay. Two Dudes was the other night. So wrong show. That's funny. A few super chats came in. Andrew Stevens sends in $10, says, for Frank, who is not here because he is preoccupied with his Kelly Meeker cutout in his room. That's funny. That's funny. Frank is probably, like I said, he's probably peeling the mousse off of a car or something. Thank you, Andrew. Appreciate that. I will make sure that he gets the message. Mark Rend sends in $2, says, fan of Monty Python, was PG and showed nudity and boobs. I like Monty Python. Yeah, I haven't watched any of them in a while, but
is it a question or
I think it's just a state. I think it's just a statement.
Okay.
I think it's just a statement.
Okay. Yeah, no, I'm a Python fan for sure. I actually saw them on stage maybe about 10 years ago now when they came round and did their farewell tour. It was good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Matthew Foresi sends in $9.99, says, if Halloween Ends has even a smidge of realism, Michael will be on the FBI's most wanted list, and there would be at least one video of him walking around Haddonfield that would be posted on YouTube. That's true. That is true, Matthew. It's true. It is. I don't think we're going to get that, although you never know. But yes, yes. I'm trying to think of some other real things too. The army would be brought in.
Sure.
The military, yeah. Haddonfield would be a shell of itself. Let me see here.
Hey, Tom.
I like how people are done with the fog now. They're like, okay, let's just ask some other questions. Don't care about this. Come on, people, the fog. Let's talk the fog, man. Let's give some love to the fog. Give some love to the fog. By the way, I do have to say this because I did watch the video. I don't know if Sean Clark is still in the chat, but go over to Sean's channel, Malfunction, and check out his recent video where he shows you some memorabilia from the movie The Fog. And Sean has the actual diary. I mean, the actual diary, the journal. Thank you. Yeah. And it was great. And Sean, I mean, my hat goes off to you. You sat there in the middle of your room on the carpet and decided to read that whole thing, even though you couldn't make sense of most of it and you couldn't, whatever the case is. But it was really, really cool because it's not just, I mean, really is a diary of, what's his face now? I forget his name.
It's
who wrote all about the behind the scenes shit. And there was a lot of behind the scenes thing that he was, talking about in there and all that kind of stuff. But it was just fascinating. It was what a cool item to have. Yeah. And it was great to see you give some love to the fog because, like we said at the top of the show today, I mean, it's one of those things where, I love it. You love it. Sean loves it. A lot of people do, but it doesn't, when you talk about top 5 Carpenter movies or John Carpenter films, I've always found that it doesn't usually make the list. It's usually kind of like way over there.
People say, well, I haven't seen it, and it's like, you're missing a treat. I know when Frank and I did, we did 2 episodes on The Fog. Yeah. And they got very little traction. It was just like, I thought everybody, because we covered a lot of Halloween stuff, and the majority of the stuff we cover on our channel is kind of either Carpenter based or horror based. And
Halloween.
And we did something on The Fog. We did the best and worst of The Fog, and we really enjoyed doing that episode. And then it just kind of sat there, and not many people look. It's done fine, but it's just like
it's like people see The Fog and they go, The Fog.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's great stuff. Come on. The Fog is great. No, it's The Fog. I don't like The Fog. I've never been able to put my finger on why people have such adverse reactions to The Fog. When you see, like I said, a top 5 list of Carpenter's best, you'll usually see, and not that they're wrong with this list, but you'll see Halloween, inevitably, The Thing, inevitably, Escape from New York, inevitably, They Live, and then, Big Trouble, or Prince of Darkness, what have you. But The Fog, it's like, I think people even forget it exists.
Yeah.
I think people think that it goes Halloween, then Escape. I think they forget that there's that 81 or that 80 film in there.
And it was really cool. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago, Studio Canal brought out these amazing 4K versions of The Fog. And the London Film Festival, in celebration of this, they actually showed the movie in a theatre in the West End.
Right.
So I actually got to see
amazing.
a presentation of The Fog in the West End of London, which was fantastic. And again, disappointing. There was only one screening, and it was probably about half full.
Right.
And for something like that, I was looking around going, why? So many people are missing out here.
You should have stood up. You should have stood up. What is wrong with you people? And then you're like, no, there's nothing wrong with us. We're here. Oh, right. Sorry.
Stood up like Hal Holbrook in his ejector seat in the church.
Okay, great. Sean says Randy Moore, production assistant, was the writing in the book. Yeah, what a cool video. I mean, and I sat and watched the whole thing. I watched you struggle through that and read it, but it was what a cool item. See, that's an item. That's a piece of movie memorabilia that is made extra cool because it's from a movie that everybody just seems to overlook. You know, but it's so darn cool. It's such a great film. It's such a great film.
It is.
You know, super chat comes in from, let's see here, FMM Forever sends in $5, says, what do you think the likelihood that any of the original three will return for the follow-up to Ghostbusters Afterlife? I think it's possible, but I think the probability is probably lower, although I don't know.
I'll leave this to you, Dave.
I think it's always possible. Possible, but always keep this in mind. The older they get, as the years go on, it's not like we're going to see a movie with the four of them as the lead. I think it's always going to be, they'll always continue to be complementary players, cameos to some degree or another. I don't think we're ever going to see, Ghostbusters 7 starring Bill Murray and, Dan Aykroyd, and they're out there in their 80s. Let's go, baby. Come on, you son of a bitch. I don't think we're going to see that. But I love Ghostbusters Afterlife. I thought it was fantastic. And I had myself and my lady friend, my girlfriend, folks. Not.
What are you, 80?
Yes, I am, baby. Fucking son of a bitch. Not Jamie Lee Curtis from The Fog. No. My girlfriend and I had the entire theater to ourselves, an entire IMAX presentation by ourselves. We got there and we thought, people are going to roll on in a minute. Nope. Movie began. We put our feet up on the chairs in front of us. I've never had that happen. I've never sat in a movie theater completely alone. There's always one noob at the top, at the back. There's always somebody, but it was just the two of us. So that was pretty cool. I adore that movie. I thought it was great. Let's see here. Justin Goodrich sends in $4.99, says, cheers for from the rainy Northeast. Pacific night for perfect night for Fog Talk. Yes, it is. This is a film that my friends who don't like horror still love and appreciate. Oh, that's interesting. It's probably because it's dated, obviously, 1980. The effects are dated. It would be considered horror light, I guess I would imagine. I think would you consider The Fog a good horror movie to, show somebody who's a little worried about watching horror movies, but to get them into horror? Like, it kind of seems like a horror light to some degree. I
don't know, because, when people say they don't like horror movies, a lot of the time is they don't like being scared.
Right.
It's not the gore necessarily.
Right.
It's
the
lot
feeling.
Of horror movies out there. Yeah. It's that tension and the build up and the burn and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And The Fog is one of those films. It's a slow burn. It kind of, it does stop and start throughout, but it all kind of builds to this crescendo, doesn't it? And whilst it's not particularly gory, I do think there's a sustained level of kind of threat throughout, which is really uneasy. And so I'm not sure whether I would, if I were to, what horror film would if I were to test the water with somebody on horror, I'd probably do it with something like, I don't know, like something like The Lost Boys or something like that,
Some people often point to Scream as a good sort of soft horror. I guess it is because of its, self-awareness and spoof-ish sort of kind of poking fun at it's almost poking fun at the idea of being scared. So I think I've heard some people say that that's a good one to kind of introduce people to, but that or The Exorcist, whatever. Yeah. It went over Darren's head.
So I was reading a question at the same time as I was trying to listen to you.
It was the way you went. It was the way you went. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That or The Exorcist, whatever. That or The Exorcist. Speaking of The Exorcist,
I love.
Are you?
Love it.
I adore The Exorcist. Are you? Are you excited for The Exorcist? No, you're not excited for The Exorcist.
I will watch it, and I do believe that there are things in it that I'm really looking forward to. I would imagine that, there's this whole thing that Linda Blair's not in it, and I kind of asked myself, why is she not in it? I would imagine she is. I can't think of anything else she would be doing.
As far as
if they've got what's the mother called? Ellen Burstyn, is that right?
Yes, something like that. Yeah, they've got the mother. So they've got the mother. Now, as we know, the purchase rights, what was it? Something like 400 million or something ridiculous like that?
Yeah.
Something ridiculous. We know that there's intention to make 3 films. So obviously, I would imagine they're going to do 1 and then see how we do. But the intention is there to make 3. I think it is unless Linda Blair has no interest. But I would imagine that although Linda Blair may not be in the first one, I would imagine there has to be intention to bring her into the fold somewhere in this Exorcist trilogy. What worries me, and you've heard me say this before on the channel, I'm a huge fan of The Exorcist, obviously, as most people are. Not everybody, but most people are, right? It's one of the greatest horror movies of all time. And I still think it holds up today. But we are so desensitized and saturated with exorcism, possession, demon type of movies, that they're really, how do you make a sequel to one of the greatest horror movies of all time, a pop culture zeitgeist film,
Lightning in a bottle. Yeah.
Right. Lightning in a bottle, especially because of the time for which it came out. It was the early 70s. It was a very different time. People were very religious, far more religious then than they are today because of the internet and the ease of access to information and all that. It's just a very different world. And how do you make a sequel to arguably the granddaddy of them all, of its genre? And because it can't just be another exorcism movie. Like, we have many exorcism movies. We have quite a few exorcism films with exorcism in the title. So, it's there's so many of these kinds of movies now that, it just makes me think, is this just going to be, not that wouldn't be a good, I'm sure it's going to be competently made, and shout out to Christopher Nelson, of course. I'm sure the effects are going to be spectacular.
That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, of course, right? I'm sure the effects are going to be spectacular, and it's going to be competently made, and hopefully it will be great. But when I think about The Exorcist, I think, how do you do anything different that hasn't been done yet with all the other imitators? And there are hundreds of other imitators, some good, some bad, some in between, without it just being another exorcism movie. This is not just, you're not just making an exorcism movie. You're not just making a demon possession movie. You're making a direct sequel. And I know they tried to do it in the mid 2000s with Dominion or Domination, whatever it was there. There were 2 films there that were released essentially by this. But this is, you're wiping the slate clean, and you are doing a direct sequel to the original. This is not just any film. This is like, what are we gonna, and And something that I think is so important, I've said this before too, is to keep in mind that yes, The Exorcist is, yes, you got, the demon and Pazuzu and the whole, the stuff, the slime and all that's great. But what really makes The Exorcism or The Exorcist so eerie and is that slow burn and that character development that it's really about the characters and the and the struggle that Father or that Damien is going through and how he feels guilty for, because of the death of his mother and how he ends up sacrificing himself. He ends up sacrificing himself, his own life, to save a little girl he's never met. He's never met her because when he's first introduced to her, she's already he's never met Reagan. And then you got Father Marin who's dealing with his own things. And it really is the drama. I mean, it's a horror movie, but it's one of those classic horror drama. Like, it's really got drama and character, and it's like Jaws, right? Where it's like, the original Jaws, it's about a shark, but it's about the drama with these characters and great characters, just great characters. And so, I get that in an exorcism movie, you're going to want to have a few heads go around 360 degrees and some slime, and okay, fine. But if it's just going to be another possession movie, don't even bother, because you really got to get into the heart of what makes this, because then, I just don't know. I don't know.
It's interesting because in the UK, the movie was banned, and so I mean, the movie for me is quite special. It came out the year that I was born, and I saw it at a very young age, and was shocked by it. In fact, I don't know if you know the movie Terror in the Aisles.
I have heard of it.
The documentary movie about horror that came out in about 1983, 84. Yes, and a large portion of that documentary is dedicated to The Exorcist, and so that was the first time that I'd seen any of it, and I managed to get a copy of the film despite it being banned in the UK. And there was a big hoo-ha in the mid-90s because it was taken off the banned list, and it was released in cinemas as billed as the scariest movie ever made, and kids that were kind of 16, 17 and 18 went to see it and came out of it going, well, that wasn't that scary, And so it was kind of a bit of a damp squib in the UK. People were really sort of underwhelmed by it when they went to see it on the re-release. And I worry that this is going to be 51 years later. Are you really going to get a younger audience to go back and watch that original and appreciate it enough to buy into these sequels? And the audience that were 20 and 30 years old when it first came out are probably dead. Yes,
exactly. But I mean, this marketing, Blumhouse, if you're listening, this marketing for the sequel to The Exorcist has got to have the, even if the movie's not, the marketing has got to speak to an audience and say, this is not your everyday Exorcist movie. That's what the marketing's got to be, because how do you elevate this? How do you go above it? Because there's so many of these kinds of movies now. So how do you say, yes, we know there's so many, there's The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and there's The Last Exorcism, and there's The Exorcism, The Haunting in Connecticut, and there's this exorcism and that exorcism and that exorcism, this exorcism, and then foreign Italian films with exorcism, all these, not that there weren't anything like that prior to The Exorcist, but you know what I'm saying, right? And it's one of those things where how do you turn to the world and say, I know, I know what you're thinking. Oh, here we go. I know what but no, this is like the marketing. You got to do something with the marketing, man. Like there's got to be, I don't know, like not just trailers, promos, and TV spots. There's got to be something else. There's got to be like Blair Witch style level marketing stuff. You know what I mean? Like really, I mean, this is The Exorcist. You're doing a sequel to The Exorcist.
There's so much at stake, isn't there? And it's like, it's not like it's Halloween, whereas, it's a $10 million, Halloween 2018, which was $10 million picture. And, struck gold. It was that's relatively easy to do because Halloween's had so many successful movies over the last, not all great, but it's had success over the last 30 years, 40 years. But with The Exorcist, the sequel was god awful. The third one was okay. And the fourth and fifth ones were a disaster because they made one film, it didn't turn out right, so they went away and made it again. And it didn't turn out right.
That's right. That's right.
So it's kind of messy,
And they've got three, like they've purchased the rights for 3 films. So that's, I'm like, 3? I mean, okay, all right. We'll see. I mean, they haven't started shooting yet. I think they shoot later this year, if I'm not mistaken. Because I don't think the first one comes out till not this fall, but the following fall. I think it's October, November of 2023, I think is when it's scheduled. So that's a good time of year. That's the time of year you want to do it for sure, is the fall. But I'm always cautiously optimistic, you know, whenever there's a movie like this that's coming out, as I'm cautiously optimistic for Halloween Ends. I was cautiously optimistic for Kills, although I was disappointed, but I'm always, I want these things to succeed. I just kind of sit back and I go,
I do as well. I just, look, me, I
for
want
sure
every film to succeed. I love cinema and I, I work in the industry and it's took a huge dent over the last few years. So we're kind of, willing for everything to work at the moment, and not everything is. And but I just hope that it's a good return for them.
I do too. I guess I could say that how do you make a sequel and return the Exorcist cachet? Do you know what I mean? Return the, The Exorcist. When you turn to somebody and say, The Exorcist, there's one fucking movie they think of.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that name or that word appears in 50 other thousand demon movies, there's one movie that people think of. And that's the movie you're doing a sequel to.
Yeah.
Well, this is big shit. This is big shit. This isn't a sequel to the...
huge weight, isn't it?
It's a huge weight. This isn't a direct sequel to The Exorcism of Emily Rose, which I actually like, by the way. I actually thought that was a really good movie. But this isn't that. This is The Exorcist. It's like, oh my God, it's like a synonym for horror. You know what I'm saying? I mean, this is what we're doing here. It's a synonym for horror. So, I mean, like, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
It's crazy stuff.
Tread carefully.
All right, let me see here. Got that one. And then Brett Patrick sends in $5. Says, out of all of Carpenter's endings, where do you rank The Fog? Oh, out of all the endings?
Perfect. It's perfect. I would say it's one of his best. I mean,
I was going to say it's a great ending.
Up there with, I think, Halloween. Do you know what one of my favorite Carpenter endings is? And the film's awful, but I love the ending of Escape from LA when he just shuts the power off to the world and it finishes.
That's funny. Yeah, I haven't seen Escape. Do you want to know what I think of when I think of Escape from LA? I haven't seen the movie in a while.
That shark.
Well, I remember. Okay, so the movie came out in 97, right?
Six, seven,
somewhere around there. So I was trying to think if I was in college yet. Anyway, I think I was 18 or 19 when it came out. And I remember seeing the TV spot, the trailer for it on TV. And when he's surfing, and I remember thinking to myself at that time in the late 90s, thinking to myself, that looks like shit. I remember thinking that looks like I remember thinking that looks so fake. You know what? I
always got the impression that they made that film to sell Snake Plissken dolls. You could imagine like a G.I. Joe type Snake Plissken doll, new Snake Plissken doll with basketball, paraglider, windsurfer, fucking pod that he goes to Universal Studios with. Everything.
True. It's true.
You know, there was every possible accessory for that doll in that film.
It was it was light years under Escape from New York, you know, and at least I found anyway. And I think I watched watched it on the movie network like a year later or something. And I remember thinking, this isn't as good. It almost felt like a spoof on it in some ways.
Yeah, it's. I mean, it was an expensive film. I think it was like 50 million at the time, and I just think that the movie was, even though it was expensive, the movie was too ambitious for its budget, I think, and they should have kept it more grounded. And they tried to turn him into some sort of almost like a superhero. Paragliding. If somebody had said to me, "You're going to see a film in a few years with Snake Plissken paragliding," I'd be like, "Get out! Shut up!"
It's such a great character, though. I love the character, and I love that first film. But Escape from L.A., not. But no, I mean, I would say the Fog, the ending to the Fog, is up there. Is up there. I mean, it's not quite Halloween, but it's a great ending. You know, I love when they turn around or they turn around when he turns around and you see them there, like they're just there all of a sudden, and you can tell it's happening too, because there's that, you know, in the sound design, there's that.
And it's you like, see a little bit of fog go under the door.
Yes, and then and then the glowing red eyes, and it's such. I want to see more of those characters. I want to see more of those creatures, whoever they are. You know, I mean, we know who they are, but I mean, I want to see them. The way that they're just, because they're pirates, but they're not. I don't know. It's done in a real creepy way. It's just
they're lepers, aren't they? They're just, you know, they're horrible. Oof.
Yeah, for sure. Matthew Fressy sends in another $9.99. Thank you, Matthew, and says, I really enjoyed The Ritual. Oh, don't even get me started. The mood and atmosphere was incredible, wasn't it? The Scandinavian forest setting was perfect. I preferred it over The Nighthouse, which was also great. Good horror still exists. Could not agree more. First of all, I watched The Ritual, and it is probably one of my favorite horror movies I've watched in the last year. I was late to the party on it. It came out in 2017, but I saw it on Netflix, and I had read the little blurb, which doesn't give you too much, but I was like, oh, and then I watched the trailer, and I thought, oh, this is interesting. Or did I watch it? No, I didn't watch the trailer. I just read the blurb, and I watched the movie, and you know, it was so inspiring. I've said this before, but it's the kind of thing where there wasn't a creative decision made from a filmmaking perspective in that movie that I could not see myself making. It was, you know, I often joke and I say that by the time the movie was done, I was jealous, but it was that inspiring jealous. It was like, I want to make a movie like that. Like, fuck, that's so, like, I was so inspired by it. I was so like, the subtlety and the nuance and the way they handled the creature and how you just kind of, but then you don't see it, and then but then you kind of it blends, and then the way that they dangle that carrot till the very end of the movie, and then that epic shot of the creature backlit against the flames of the house and the silhouette. Like, what a fucking movie! I mean, it's just so good, and the way that one character's subconscious is playing on his mind because he feels guilty about his friend dying, and spoiler alert, you know, and all this.
It's
like,
good.
It's such a good movie. It's so good. I walked away thinking, if I had that budget, I had that script, I probably would have made the same movie, or at least something very similar. It's just so subtle and so creepy, and it's so good. And The Nighthouse, I think, is really good too.
I haven't seen The Nighthouse yet.
Oh, it's good.
Is it good? It's on Disney, isn't it? I think. Disney Plus. It is over here anyway. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Sure. Yeah. Disney Plus has kind of gone weird over here because they're. You know, there's Disney branding all over the place, and you know, like when you go on the homepage now, there's kind of like Mickey Mouse and bloody C-3PO and
well, they have Pam Disney Adult. They have, you know,
yeah, well, that's what I mean. The Pam and Tommy TV shows in the middle of it all, surrounded by Mickey Mouse and all that. Because I know it's Hulu in the US, but over here it was Disney.
It's called Disney After Dark. It's Disney After Dark, and you go to it, and you know, you got Minnie Mouse in like a lingerie, and she's there, and she's got her like this or that. It's like, what the heck is going on here?
The Little Mermaid.
Oh, get out, everybody! That'd be awful. Frank.
Dark Light says Nighthouse put me to sleep. Boring. Oh,
no, okay. No, the Nighthouse? No way. That's because there was no blood and guts and gore. It wasn't exciting enough. I'm just busting your balls, man. I'm just teasing you. I loved it. I thought it was great. I really like the Nighthouse. I won't give any spoilers away, but I'll say I love the way that they utilized certain imagery. It was very clever. It was clever, and I was like, the ending. Well, I'll just let you watch it and see what you think.
Okay,
let you see what you think. But I really liked it. But yeah, The Ritual. Oh, it's so good.
Yeah, it's a good film.
Yeah, really good. Let me see. Did I get all the super chats? I think I did. Frank Riker's there. Hey, there's Frank. A free cup of pee.
Free? What's he saying?
I thought he said a free cup of pee, but he says a free cup of pea soup with every ticket sold at the theater for The Exorcist. Oh, yeah. Yeah, they should do that. Do we know who else is in The Exorcist? Let me see here. The Exorcist 2023.
Is David Gordon Green directing all of them?
He's directing I believe so, yes. And
what happened to his Hellraiser film?
I don't know. Okay, so we got Nick Benas, Benas, Benas. He's just credited as the neighbor, so that could be just a very small role. Ellen Burstein. And then we have Leslie Odom Jr., and then Nigel Bartow as a nurse. So I don't think there's really been either they haven't cast yet, because these sound very much like sort of extras or as neighbor. I mean, that kind of sounds like maybe a 30-second role, but who knows? Maybe it'll be all about the neighbor. Who knows? It could be. But yeah, so not too much in the way of cast. David Gordon Green is directing it. I hope this isn't going to be called The Exorcist. Stop doing that.
They bought that IP. They'll want to use it, won't they?
Well, they will. But I just mean that I hope it. Halloween. The Exorcist. Like, oh, come on!
Scream.
What's that?
Scream.
Yeah, Scream.
As well.
Right. It's like, oh, come on! Can you not just call it? I guess you can't call it The Exorcist 2, but you could call it.
Well, there's a lot of concern, isn't there, about putting numbers at the end of film titles now, because it just a lot of the time just signals fatigue, doesn't it? So that's why nowadays you see more films that are kind of a title and then colon, a subtitle, and rather than an actual number. As
long as it's not the 5 R's, which you see all the bloody time. Revenge, return, retribution, resurrection, and resurgence. Yeah, but you got return, revenge, retribution, resurgence, and whatever the other one I said. Yeah, whatever. Resurgence, or whatever it is. It's like, God, don't do that. No, I imagine that it'll just be called The Exorcist, or no, Exorcist. Oh, they dropped the.
Yeah.
They dropped the.
And all those R's that you mentioned there all sound like Van Damme movies.
I remember when I went to go see Halloween H2O in the movie theater, and I took Bruce, who came with me, and my brother Neil, who is, I always credit him as the one who got me into horror way back in the early 80s. And so Halloween H2O was coming out, and we picked up my brother Neil, and we went over to this theater called... I think it was called Sunset Theater or something like that. And we were sitting in the theater and we were watching the trailers, and there was a trailer for a Van Damme movie called Knockoff. And my brother Neil, after it was done, like, you know, and that was back in the day when they actually had, you know, like, well, it was just, anyways, it was this thing that came up on the screen and, you know, you hear Van Damme, knock off. And my brother Neil's like, oh, fuck off. You know, he just yells it straight out into the theater. Oh, fuck off. Yeah, because it looked ridiculous. It looked absolutely ridiculous. And but I'll never forget that. Yeah, we were in the seat to watch Halloween H2O. And yeah. Did you see Halloween H2O at the theater?
I did.
Yeah.
The first one I saw at the theater was Halloween 4. And that was full. That was good watching that in the theater. But yeah, I saw H2O in the theater. Yeah. I mean, I wanted to love it, and when I came out, I convinced myself that I liked it, and then it wasn't long before. I think it was by the time that I think I saw it a second time, and then by the time the DVD came out, and I bought that because it was in the early days of DVD, and you know, Buena Vista brought this, and it said there was a sticker on it that said new footage included.
Really?
Yeah. And I've seen this quite a few times, and
no
there's
new footage.
all new. There's no new footage in there whatsoever.
No.
But yeah, I mean, right from the opening few minutes, I really like. The rest of it, and I know there's big fans of it out there, and that's cool. But you know, as I said the other day on our Frank and our stream on Saturday, the Halloween End stream that we did, the moment that they started striking up that brass band to play Halloween music, I was like, this is it. I'm out.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be orchestral like that.
I've often said here on the channel, I do understand why people, why there's a large section of the Halloween fan base that love Halloween H2O. And I really do think, you know, if you were born in, you know, the late 80s,
if that's your Halloween, that's great.
Exactly. I think for a lot of people, it was their first introduction, either their first introduction into Halloween or the first Halloween movie they ever saw in the theater, or, you know, there's a big nostalgic tie to it. But man, it's a terrible Halloween movie. Like, it just there's no, I mean, and this isn't personal. It's not like I'm trying to attack Steve Miner or Chris Durand or anything like that. It's just that, but when you look at the movie, and like, I get what they were trying to do, but it doesn't feel like Halloween, doesn't look like Halloween, doesn't smell like Halloween. It does. It looks like Michael Myers walked onto the set of Dawson's Creek. You know, I always say that it's so not Halloween, and the mask and the big eye holes and seeing his eyeballs, and nothing makes any sense because this is supposed to be a direct sequel to Halloween 2. So there's no bird. And they never found his body. That's it. Anyways, I've talked about all these things before, but yeah, it's not a film that, I don't think it's aged very well, actually.
No, it hasn't at all.
I think Scream is aged better.
90s films. Yeah, true. But still, I think a lot of those 90s horror films that came out around that same time, the Urban Legend, although I will credit Urban Legend's first 10 minutes being one of the best 10 minutes of 90s horror. Yeah, I think it's fantastic, that opening scene with I mean, it's kind of been done to death since then, but yeah, that opening scene in Urban Legend with the gas station attendant and the axe murder in the car, fantastic. But yeah, a lot of those 90s films to me have kind of not held up as well as some of the 80s slashers have.
Yeah. It's true. It's very true. Happy Sanjo sends in $2 and says, I found The Nighthouse boring as well. Well, you suck. You suck.
Hey, Coy, you paid $2 to tell us a film that you watched was shit.
You suck. You suck. It is a slow burn. It is a slow burn for sure, and it's you know, it's one of those kinds of movies. It's certainly not Scream or Texas Chainsaw. Speed, right? Speed. I remember when I appreciate the movie now. With what's his face there, the movie Leon the Professional. I love that movie, but I remember when it came out the same year as Speed, and I remember when I first watched the movie, I remember the VHS box had this blurb that said, "Make Speed look like a slow ride to Grandma's house," and of course, I'm like 15 years old. I rent it. I watch it. And I'm like, this is the most boring fucking movie I've ever seen in my life, about this old guy and this little girl. And what the shit is this? This make a Speed look like a slow ride to grandma's house? Let's pop in Speed again. Yeah, let's pop in Speed again. Yeah, let's just watch Speed again. Of course, as I have gotten older, Leon the Professional is one of my favorite movies ever. I mean, I think it's such a good movie. Gary Oldman is fantastic in it. Natalie Portman, her first role. It's a fantastic movie, as long as you don't think that it's going to make Speed look like a slow ride to grandma's house. That's
a ridiculous quote.
It is. And it totally is. I wonder if I could bring that up somewhere. Makes Speed look like a slow ride to grandma's house. I wonder if that'll just suddenly come up. Let me just see here. Yeah, there it is.
Is that really?
Yeah, it was on the VHS box.
Because it's actually quite a slow burn, isn't it? Up until the last sort of.
It's a very slow film. I'll put this up onto the screen. I don't know if you'll have to wait for it to pop up, because I know there's a bit of a delay here. Hang on a sec here. Where are we here? And there it is. Okay, so I'm just putting this up onto the screen now. So this is the VHS box. Let me know when it pops up for you. Makes Speed look like a slow ride to grandma's house. That's Don Stoddard, Entertainment Timeout Syndication. It's probably fake. It's probably not even a real. It's probably not even real.
Oh, I can see it now. It's come up.
It's probably not even real.
Makes Speed look like driving Miss Daisy.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It's so ridiculous. It's so silly. So silly. But I'll never forget that was when I rented it from Blockbuster in the mid-90s. That's what it said. Of course, we were all excited. Of course, you're with your friends. You're like, yeah, let's rent this. Yeah. And we're like, what the hell is some stupid, weird, awkward love story between this 13-year-old and...
Did you have that thing as well with Blockbuster? When I speak to I don't have kids of my own, but when I speak to my nephews and try to explain to them that when you wanted to see a film back in the 80s, if you went to the video store, you might not get what you want to watch because someone else in the town might be watching it.
That's right.
And they kind of look at me like, what are you talking about? And I was like, well, initially, before Blockbuster came along, video stores, they only had one copy of these movies, and there'd be a little tag on it that said on loan or something like that.
That's right.
And kids today can't get their head around the fact that we might have had to wait to watch something.
It's true. In the 80s, we lived in a little town north of Toronto called Bolton. Now, of course, it's not so little anymore. It's probably got about 45,000 people. But back in the 80s, it was probably 20,000. It was probably half that. And when my parents moved there, actually in 1971, it was known as the Village of Bolton. So very, very small. And in the early 80s, we didn't have like a Blockbuster or anything like that. Eventually they did, but there's we would rent from convenience stores, would have like a section at the back where they had movies, and they'd only have one copy. I remember renting from Canadian Tire. Now, for my American friends, or for anybody who doesn't know what Canadian Tire is, it's like a Home Depot. And you get all sorts of shit there, and you can have your car service there as well. Anyways, Canadian Tire, they've been around for years, since like the 50s or whatever. And I remember having to go to Canadian Tire, and you'd walk into this certain section of the store, and they would have a section of movies that were there, and you would rent movies from Canadian Tire. It's so weird. It was so weird. Yeah. But to your point, you would, and there'd be like a little, it's out. When is it coming back?
Maybe that's why you were so down on Leon, because you had to wait 3 months for it to come in, to be returned before you could borrow it.
Maybe that's what it was. This
film's got more action than Speed in it. It's going to be great.
Well, we were like, in 94, I would have been 15. So, we were all like, yeah, Speed. Yeah, because we had just, Speed was such a big thing because all the girls in our class were all into Keanu Reeves, this new guy, right? And they're like, oh, let's watch this. It was the lamest, boring, and they're okay. Whose idea was it to rent The Professional? Hey, this is so dumb. But that's like 15-year-old talking. By the time I was 20, I revisited the movie and I was like, this is brilliant. This is such a great fucking movie. I don't know what was wrong with me. No, it was so good. Michael Strong sends in £5 and says, talking about The Exorcist makes me think how great George C. Scott would have been playing Brackett. Would have been amazing with Pleasance. Yeah, for sure.
He would have looked about the same age as
Brackett,
Charles Cyphers.
Well, and George C. Scott was in an early 80s horror movie called The Changeling. And very good movie. And I believe I don't know if is it a full Canadian film or if it's partly Canadian. I think it was shot in Montreal, if I'm not mistaken.
Could be.
And I think some of the producing might have come from Canada. But yeah, that's a great movie. That's a great haunted house. Old school horror movie. Fast Forwards 289 sends in $1.99, says, what's up, Dave and Darren, for the channel. Thank you very much, Fast Forwards. Appreciate that. He follows up with $4.99 and says, D&D. Have you ever seen You Should Have Left with Kevin Bacon? If so, what do you think? You Should Have Left with Kevin Bacon?
Oh, it's the one. I think it's the one you did the episode on when the trailer dropped last year. The one that kind of looked a bit like The Shining. Shining vibe.
I can't believe you remember I did something on that. That's so funny. Darren catalogs all my.
I'm just gonna go through here every night. I just Wapner.
I sat through the I Love Lucy episode, remember?
That was one of my shining moments. Was talking about I Love Lucy. It was one of my shining moments, I'm telling you.
You should have. That thumbnail came up, I was like, I Love Lucy?
Yeah.
Look at his bio. It's a Halloween channel. He's doing an episode on I Love Lucy.
You should have left. I did watch this movie, I think. I did watch this movie, and I didn't think it was very good. You Should Have Left with Kevin Bacon and Amanda Seyfried.
I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't watch it.
I didn't think it was very good. At least I don't recall it being very good.
I think it was one of those that kind of dropped to streaming during the pandemic, wasn't it?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think you are correct. All right, so we've been going 97 minutes, an hour and 37 minutes. How you feeling, Darren? I know you got to get up good. And do stuff. We're going to go a bit longer.
I've got a slow day tomorrow, so
all right.
Yeah, I've got nothing on in the morning, so I'm good.
Okay, we'll hang out a little bit longer. Let's see here. If you see anything, Darren, by all means.
I did see something there with George C. Scott in Firestarter. Did you see that the Firestarter soundtrack is out in a couple of weeks? The John Carpenter one.
Yes, I did not know it was coming out in a couple of weeks. I did hear the track they did release, though. And I thought it was my first thought was classic Carpenter.
Yeah.
Love the sound. It was a little too repetitive in the beginning. I felt like after like a minute, I was like, I wanted to change it. But again, you have to keep in mind too, that this is a movie soundtrack. This is not just somebody having, so it has to, when you hear this in the context of watching the film, it might make perfect sense why this one beat is lasting for, 90 seconds or something like that. But that was a thought that ran through my head was, this is good. This is okay. All right. Can we go up an octave now? Or I kind of felt that a bit, and then it eventually did. And I was like, oh yeah, this is good. Yeah. It's good. I mean, it's classic Carpenter, but you got to give a shout out to obviously Cody Carpenter and Daniel Davies as well. I don't think they get enough credit. Yes, it's John Carpenter's signature sound, but you know, when you look at what Cody and Daniel are doing, I mean, they're doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and there's
talented guys,
talented guys, and there's no doubt that a lot of those ideas that you think, that Carpenter gets the credit for, are probably his son and his godson. So they just happen to agree with the style of synth music. So the three of them it sounds great. I actually am looking forward to seeing this movie.
Yeah, I'm interested.
I'm interested. I think I'm interested.
There doesn't seem to be much, and this sounds really corny, there doesn't seem to be much heat on it at the moment.
No, there doesn't. But I actually really appreciate that a modern horror movie, because I don't think the movie takes place in the 80s, does it? I think it takes place today, I think. But anyway, I love the fact that the entire soundtrack is going to be, because it's one thing to hear that kind of a soundtrack with the Halloween movies, right? It makes sense. It's the Halloween movies. You know, it would be weird if you didn't have that kind of music. And when I say kind, I'm talking about the synth and all that kind of stuff. But now you have another movie that's coming out, Firestarter. Now, obviously the original Drew Barrymore in the 80s, it would make sense to have that kind of music. But I like the fact that there's another horror movie coming out with 80s music that may or may not be set in the 80s. I'm not sure. Is it set in the 80s? I need to know, because then if it is, that kind of Firestarter.
I don't know, but I guess it doesn't have to be. I mean, there's a lot of love for this kind of synth wave and stuff now, isn't there? So
there is, and that's why a father. Yeah, it doesn't really say here. I get the sense that it's probably not. I have a feeling that it's modern. But I love the creative choice to make it all synth and very retro feeling in terms of the soundtrack. I really like that.
Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's I mean, good for, I mean, John Carpenter obviously negotiated something there with Blumhouse, didn't he? And to give his son and what's his name? Daniel
Davies
a foot up,
Yep.
Post Halloween, I guess. If they can get some more gigs doing horror soundtracks, that's great.
All right, I'll come back and do the other soundtrack if you give my son some work to do.
Maybe that's how it went down. I don't know.
Yeah. Put it out on the internet in Canada.
And he was sitting like this too. He was sitting like this. He was like this.
So where is it on the internet in Toronto, or what's the situation there?
And his handler right. No, Charles. That's it.
He's like, oh, okay. Nah, I'm good. I'm retired.
Yeah, there's a big net around Toronto, so the internet can't get out.
That's it. Yeah. He said he was retired. He didn't want to talk on camera, and then he gets cast and kills. Damn son of a bitch! You said you were retired. You got. No, I understand.
It reminds me of a tweet I once saw by somebody. I can't remember who it was. It was just a random person, and it said, "If I open my window, will all the Wi-Fi particles escape?"
It kind of reminds me of my father, and I don't know if my dad was being facetious or not, but I remember he was visiting me. This has got to be about 15 years ago. He was visiting me, and he said, "Well, I'm going to go back to," because he was staying at a hotel. I'm like, "Why are you staying at a hotel? He stay with me." But anyway, he wanted to stay at a hotel. I think because he needed to write, and he wanted just kind of
Yeah.
And so. He was like, "Well," he's like, "All right, Dave, I got to get back to the hotel to check my email." And I said, "Well, you can check it here." And he goes, No, I got to go back because that's where my laptop is. I said, "Well, no, but if you know the password and whatever you use, you can check it right here." And he's like, "Well, how's that?" No, but it's I got my emails on the. I think he thought that the emails were on his. He needed his computer. They're on his
laptop.
Yeah, something like that. And a part of me thinks my dad was just busting my balls, but then there's the other side of the thinks, nah, he was probably serious. He was probably serious. He was already in his 60s by then, so he was. He was probably like, what? It doesn't make any sense. And then part of me just thinks maybe he was like, "Dave, I just want to get back to the fucking hotel." Maybe that's what he wanted to do. I don't want to be here anymore, okay? Real Reveal sends in 279, says, I have never seen The Fog. Is it on 4K? I want to.
Yes. Yeah. As Colin says, it's on the Studio Canals label on 4K.
Amazing. I've got to get it then.
You would pick that up on... it's a really nice box set as well. In fact, I'll grab it for you. I'll show you it. It's
yeah.
amazing.
Do it up. I can't wait to see it. Yeah, The Fog, Theo, is a great movie. You know, it's an old school. Well, it's Carpenter's second movie after Halloween. I believe he did Elvis. Did Carpenter do Elvis? Maybe Darren will know. Did Carpenter do Elvis before Halloween or after Halloween? I know it was both 78, I think, right?
I think it was just after. I think, was Elvis 79?
Maybe Elvis was 79, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe the chat will let us know. Anyway, he did Halloween, Elvis, and then he did The Fog.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I think you should check it out, Theo.
And in somewhere, someone, what was the film? Someone's Watching Me? That was in there.
Oh, that's right. That's
well.
right. Yeah, that I think that was 79. That's right. Yeah, that TV movie. That's right. I forgot about that one.
So that is the...
Looks so good.
That's the... it's like a 4-disc set. It's huge.
4 discs? What the hell did they jam on there?
You have a book, which is really cool.
Very cool.
Got all this stuff in there, and
wow.
And then it all kind of opens up big. Everything falls out. There's
so
4
what
discs.
So what are these discs? Are they just DVD, 4K, a Blu-ray?
There's a 4K disc. There's the DVD.
Mm-hmm.
There's an extras disc, and then you have the movie soundtrack as well.
Oh, cool.
And then you have the poster, which opens up here. Hold on.
Yeah, that's great.
And then I've just thrown half of it all on the floor. You run over it with my chair.
You start smashing it with a hammer. It's like, what the hell is going on here? Darren's losing it.
And then a bunch of lobby cards as well, with all different stills on them and all that kind of stuff. So
very cool.
And the Studio Canal did exactly the same thing for They Live, for Prince of Darkness, for The Thing, and for Escape from New York. So I have all of those. And I think it was only released in the UK in this way. But it may have just come out. I think some of them may be being released in the US now, or pretty soon.
Yeah.
So it's well worth it. You'll never see it look so good.
It looks fantastic. I love box sets like that. Really, really, really cool. Yeah, Reese Wilson here says, it was after Halloween. Carpenter tells a funny story that the producer hired him for Elvis because he did the music for Halloween. So he knows his music, so he must know Elvis.
Okay.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. And Someone's Watching Me was in there as well. But I believe Elvis and Someone's Watching Me were both TV movies. So I think the Fog was... After Halloween, The Fog was Carpenter's next theatrical film. I believe 1980. Real Reveal follows up with 279 and says, "What do you guys think about the Johnny Depp case?" Well, let's just say that, when it gets to a point where your significant other is crapping in your bed, I think that, it becomes a situation where it's probably time to move on. I think it's no longer a defamation case. It is a defecating case. It is wah, 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 wah.
It's just such a sideshow, isn't it?
Oh.
I mean, there was something the other day, like with him, I don't know, they played a record. I mean, there's this horrible stuff that she's supposedly done, and then there's equally some of the stuff he's done's not too savory either. But they play I got a Sky News alert, a news flash on my phone the other day, and it said Depp, court hears Depp calling Heard fat ass on the news flash on my phone, and I was like, what?
What's so bad too, Darren, is I tried to watch, maybe it was from Sky News. It's one of those things. I was on YouTube and I saw like a 10-minute clip of Depp on the stand. And my first thought when I saw the thumbnail was, whoa, man, does he look rough? You know, he doesn't, you know, I mean, I know he's closing in on 60 now. He looked tired, looked rough.
Yeah.
So, but I was like, okay, so I click on the thumbnail and I'm not saying that, I mean, he could very well be, everything he's saying is bang on. And by the sounds of it, some of the shit that's coming about, you know, out about Amber Heard, yeah, there's a case to be made that she wasn't too, not too nice. But it sounds like there's, there's both sides.
Yeah.
That being said, he's there, and the way he's there, and he's like, I think I was looking at the wall. And then I came down the
This could have been
stairs.
over weeks ago, couldn't it?
Yes, I'm sitting there and I'm watching and I'm thinking, Johnny, you're not in a film. You're not like he'd be painful to have dinner with. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, listen, there's one thing, like I said, I know I can talk a lot, but I'd rather have somebody talk a lot than hardly at all, or struggle for like 10 minutes to get through one sentence. You know, it's like, man, God.
It did make me laugh. I think it was Friday and something came up on my phone and it was the bit when he was explaining to the court what she did on his bed. And he couldn't really say it without laughing, could he? He was just like,
Didn't he say
was there an incident or something?
He said something like, and she delivered fecal matter. Delivered fecal matter. I'm thinking, what, in like a uniform? Or is what? Here you go, Johnny. Oh, it's such a shit show. No pun intended. I mean, the fact that we're like the world, we're not going to make it. I hate to say it. I think aliens should just come down and blow us all to smithereens. Yes, all of us. Everybody in the chat room, Darren and I right now, and just get rid of us all. We're not going to make it when this trial, this kind of thing is what has got people, excited about Amber Heard's fecal matter on the bed. I mean, it's like, Jesus, we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it.
His buddy found it as well, didn't he? His mate found it and then texted him a photo of it.
And she's trying to pass it off that it was the dog, And he's like, I've walked those dogs. I've picked up that shit. That ain't it. Why would you shit in somebody's bed? I mean, come on, Christ.
Oh,
it's a shit show, Theo. An absolute shit show. Fast Forwards 289 says, Darren, have you seen the Dark Night of the Scarecrow? If so, what did you think? Dave, have you had a chance to watch it yet? I have not seen it yet. No, I have not seen it yet.
It's an 80s, I think it may have been a TV movie, if I remember rightly. It's got the guy who played Dr. Giggles, Larry, I can't remember his name now. He plays like a sort of autistic guy who gets bullied by a bunch of locals. And actually, there's some sort of, if I remember rightly, it's a while since I've seen it, there's some kind of mistaken identity or something like that where they think he's involved with a little girl. And actually, he's just really good friends with her, and they actually execute him within the inside of it. He hides inside a scarecrow in a field, and they shoot the scarecrow, and he then takes revenge on them as, like, I think he's one of the undead, but within the suit of the scarecrow. But you never know whether it's actually him or not until the dying moments of the film. It's really Larry Drake. That's it.
That sounds
it's good.
Yeah,
it's got a lot of heart as well.
Cool. Sounds similar to an idea that I had when I was doing the Hellevator pitch with Cecil Laird over at the horror show. My slasher idea was it was very sort of 80s kind of simple idea, but it was about this kid who is bullied in this small town, and he it's a small farm kind of town, and he gets bullied to the point where I think he's the pumpkin patch or the field with pumpkins or whatever is set on fire, and he happens to be caught in it, and he ends up burning to death and dying, but he ends up coming back as a spirit that takes on the form of it's like a body, like it's a person, but he's got like a jack-o'-lantern for a head. And it's got flames coming out of it. Because we've seen similar art, like we've seen kind of things like that before, but this got flames, and he can shoot fire from his fucking flames and shit. Oh yeah, it's totally. And he goes and he seeks revenge on the townspeople, because it's not just him that was bullied. It was I think it was his whole family or his parents or something like that were made fun of and bullied and stuff. And he seeks his revenge. And it's like fucking
cool.
Yeah, it's be good
and
shit.
I see Cecil's back up and running now, right?
He is back up and running now. Yeah, it took about I think he said 16 days or something like that. They were offline. So he's back. He's back.
That's good.
Yeah, it is good. I forget the name of that idea I had. Was it called Jack? No, there is a movie out there, I think, called Jack. Or maybe it was called Jack. I'd have to watch that elevator pitch thing again, because there were other ideas I had with it that was really cool. Anyway,
cool.
Let me see. Is
there anything else?
I'm trying to see. Did we get all the super chats? I think we did. All the super chats.
Colin says, I watched about an hour of it the other day. My God, you were right. It took him a millennia to get a sentence out.
Oh, Johnny Depp. Yeah, it's just brutal. Just brutal. He's so like, well, I took a drink, and then I decided to. It's like, Jesus God. I walked into the bathroom and saw fecal on the whatever. It's like, and just watching Amber Heard's, because it's a split screen, so you have her on the other side going, it's like, what am I watching? It's like a Sesame Street skit or something ridiculous like that. Well, maybe not quite, but it's awful. Let me see.
Sounds like a Scarecrow version of Ghost Rider. I was thinking of Ghost Rider when
I was talking about. Yeah, well, it's not. I got to go back, and I have the idea written down somewhere, but it's pretty intense. But it's a slasher movie. It's a slasher movie, and he's in like coveralls and stuff, and he's in the outfit that he died in, right? And because he was a farmer, and he doesn't just use, but you see, you don't realize that he can use the flames from, like, how there's obviously a candle in a pumpkin. Well, this is like a sort of an exaggerated, because he's a spirit now, right, or whatever, and there's. It's like an exaggerated sort of flame inside the pumpkin, but you don't realize he can use it because he's using farm equipment. He's using like fucking pitchforks and all sorts of shit to kill people and stuff. And then there's just one moment towards the end of the movie where it just unleashes, and what's interesting is that if it's what's so funny? What's so funny? What is so funny?
No, carry on. I love your passion for this flaming pumpkin head.
I'm telling you, it's a flaming pumpkin head. But you can market sequels, because sequels, you can change up the shape of the jack-o'-lantern. You could actually have the actual jack-o'-lantern look different in subsequent sequels, right? He doesn't always have to have the same shape. And then you immediately recognize, that's part 2, because I can tell by the shape of the jack-o'-lantern. Like, it's kind of like, Freddy's Mask or something like that. I'm telling you. I've told you this
before, but we, as a kid, we didn't have pumpkins. Our area, I don't know whether it was a pumpkin was for more kind of middle class people or something like that. But we our Halloween, we had a turnip, and we would carve out a turnip, and you would walk around with this bloody stinking turnip all night, carved up of. So.
It's not Jacko.
Consider that for one of the sequels,
I could.
Pumpkin,
I could.
like turnip on his head.
Cody says, "Is it Jacko?" No, there's a B movie very similar to that called Jacko, and but this would be if done right, it's a very 80s slasher style kind of movie. You know what I mean? I'm telling you, I think it would sell. I'm just saying.
Frank has a good a good request.
Dave, do Johnny Depp as Loomis. I met Do you have an hour? I could do it in an hour, I think. I could do it in an hour. I met this. He's there and he's just 6. And I 6. That's what he's like. He's a "You're an old child." Oh God, I can't even do it. I can't even say what's going on? Yeah, he took a shit on my bed. No, 6-year-old child that took a shit on his bed. That's what it is. That's what it is. I'm telling you. Fast forwards 289. Your idea sounds very similar to The Dark Knight of the Scarecrow, so I think you'd really enjoy, Dave. Yeah, well, that's what made me think of the idea. I forget. There was more to my idea, but you'd have to watch my Elevator pitch episode over on Cecil's channel. But it essentially was about a family that was bullied and was killed in the field where all the pumpkins are, and he comes back as a like a scarecrow looking type of person, but with a pumpkin head to seek revenge on the town people. Very, very slasher 80s B kind of shit. You know what I mean? That you'd see way back in the day. But and
wasn't there a character? It sounds like the character in Return to Oz.
I haven't seen Return to Oz.
There's a tall
and the little boy
with the pumpkin head.
Oh, okay,
yeah.
Maybe. And the little boy's name is Jack. That's his name. His name's Jack.
Okay.
And I think that was the name of the title. My idea was Jack, and it's just he comes back, and like, I don't want you to think that he comes back and he's shooting fire every 5 seconds out of his pumpkin. It's not that kind of a thing. I just mean that he just and everything is just, it's like Firestarter, but with a pumpkin,
like that big robot in Thor.
No. No, it's just there comes a moment where it happens in the movie, and you're like at the you're like, oh shit, he's fucking can do that. What does that mean? Like, how does that elevate things? Maybe he doesn't even know he can do it. And I'd like to make him a bit of a sympathetic character too, like an anti-hero. Robert Thidoff, Dave and Darren, name one aspect of the Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th franchise you feel is better than Halloween.
Oh, that's a good question.
That's a really good question. Well, I think,
I think I would say consistency in Friday the 13th. It hasn't meandered until you get to the very end, whereas he's messing around in space and
that's true,
jumping from body to body or whatever. But yeah, throughout the whole Friday the 13th franchise, it is kind of, I guess, the same lineage.
Yep, that is true. They are same with A Nightmare on Elm Street. It's all part of the same continuity.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could say that that's one thing they do better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ty Lee says they all have stinkers. They do.
They do. They do.
Some more than others.
Yeah. Yeah.
Bracket leaves mid-sentence.
Bracket leaves mid-sentence
with your Johnny Depp.
I thought there was a movie where Where bracket left mid-sentence. I was like, that's amazing. What movie is this? 1 or 2? Or that's amazing. More fancy time. Lee. Colin Murdy says, well, what was the title, Dave? The Incinerator? No, you mean with my pumpkin
Man?
It was
Pumpkin Man.
No, it was called Jack. It was called Jack. Oh, Jack. Look at Darren. He's going. I don't think so. I think we're going to pass on this one today, Mr. McRae. I think we're going to pass on it. All right. I'm just saying.
Oh, dear.
All right, where are we? We're just over 2 hours now, so I think that's a good spot to leave it there for 2 hours. I think is good. So thank you to everybody in the chat room, of course, who sent in super chats. Really appreciate that very much. Darren, thank you for popping on here and shooting the shit with me for a couple of hours. I really appreciate it. And I'll put a link to your channel. I should have done that before. I always forget to do that. I'll put a pinned post, a link to your channel at the top of this video. But where can people find you, and what do you have coming up on your channel?
So Frank and I, most of you will know Frank, I think, and I recognize a lot of names in this chat at the moment, but we are the Slaughtered Lamb Movie Podcast, or TSL Movie Podcast. You will find us easily by just putting Slaughtered Lamb in on YouTube. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we're on Twitter as well. We've just we did a live stream on Halloween Ends the other day, which was fun. We just released the best and worst of X yesterday. We've got the best and worst of Fright Night coming up this weekend. That was a very fun episode. I was dying editing that together. That was great fun. And also, we've still got lots of stuff to come. We're in the middle of doing the Evil Dead franchise, and there's a whole load of stuff on there. And even Dave's on quite a number of our episodes as well. So feel free to check us out.
Yeah, especially the Elm Street ones. They're best and worst of the Elm Street series. I'm on all of them. So that was a lot of fun. So yeah, thanks guys for tuning in. Really appreciate it. I'll be back, of course, some point this week. I'll be back, especially if there's any Halloween related news that comes out. I'll definitely be talking about that. But have a great rest of, where are we here? There's my Patreon card. Have a great rest of your night, and Darren and I will talk to you guys soon. Alrighty. Cheers.
Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.